Oh, Donnie can't be in the video. I like that.
All right, we're now streaming.
We're trying to stream.
Okay.
What's happening?
Yes.
There we are.
Nice.
Hello world. Should we maybe give people a minute or two to get in before we start?
Sure.
If anyone has any jokes.
Will you be able to get a count of how many people are actually participating?
Yep. And if people
Okay.
have questions, they'll be able to send them too. So they'll show up a little bit later. All right, let's do it.
Will you be able to get a count of how many people are actually participating?
Okay. that was I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, you guys ready to begin?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right, great. So hello everyone out there. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Jason Altschuler. I'm the current president of the Yale Undergraduate Jazz Collective. I'm so excited to be doing this event. It's been a great semester, and we've really made the most of it and had some fun things online. But this is a great opportunity to sort of dig into the city, that the reason that we're all together, the reason we all know each other, New Haven, and sort of talk about the jazz scene and some luminaries on the scene, just to hear what it's like. So you're not here to hear me speak, so I'll finish up in a second. But just before we begin, I want to say that the YJC is co-sponsoring an educational online event for Thelonious Monk, in honor of Thelonious Monk. That's happening on December 13th, so be sure to like us on Facebook and our email list, and we'll send out the information for that. That should be a great one. So without further ado, it's my absolute honor to welcome Jeff Fuller, Nick DeMaria, and Jesse Hameen II for the New Haven Jazz panel, and I'll now turn it over to Adian.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Jason, and happy birthday. It is Jason's birthday today.
Hey, happy birthday.
Sagittarius.
Yeah, thanks again, Jason, for those words. These three guys we have here are leading figures in the New Haven jazz community. They are people you should know. And before we get started with our questions, we want to give them a quick introduction. So we'll start with Mr. Jesse Hameen II. Drummer Jesse Hameen II is a musician with a mission. He is dedicated to entertaining and inspiring others to attain a higher level of spiritual consciousness. He is driven by his desire to encourage others to know that life's conditions can be changed and improved. Born in New Haven, Connecticut, Hameen's family upbringing and his background in gospel, Afro-Cuban, R&B, and jazz prepared him to begin successful road tours in 1963. He has since traveled and performed extensively throughout the United States, Europe, Africa, the Caribbean, Canada, and Mexico. He has been leading his own group, Elevation, since 1976. He has performed, recorded, and or appeared on national TV with many of the following artists who I'm sure you know: Grover Washington Jr., George Benson, Gloria Lynn, Freddie Cole, Stanley Turrentine, Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions, Lou Donaldson, Etta Jones, Pharoah Sanders, Kenny Burrell, Curtis Fuller, and many, many others. Hameen works as jazz department coordinator at the Neighborhood Music School here in New Haven, as well as teaching at a variety of other local institutions.
And next we have Nick DeMaria. Nick DeMaria is a New Haven, Connecticut-based trumpeter, composer, and educator. A graduate of Western Connecticut State University, Nick holds a bachelor's in jazz performance studying under Eddie Henderson, Dave Scott, Jeremy Pelt, Taylor Hobynum, and Rich Clymer, a master's of science in music education, and his Connecticut teaching certification. Nick began playing music at age 9, and over the years has played in multiple genres, from jazz to reggae to classical to punk. In 2001, Nick joined the Connecticut ska punk scene, playing with the band The Flaming Tsunamis. For 5 years, Nick was an integral member of the six-piece band, touring with and co-writing some of the band's most famous tunes. In 2006, upon graduating from college, Nick assembled his first working quartet, which has undergone a series of personnel changes over the years. Performing music written by Nick in standards from some of jazz's greatest composers, The band has played hundreds of performances to a wide variety of audiences. Since then, Nick has been composing extensively and has since released 3 studio albums and other recordings. Nick is also the founder and head of the New Haven Jazz Underground, a grassroots organization dedicated to producing, promoting, and supporting jazz in all its forms.
And last but not least, Jeff Fuller, an integral part of the Connecticut, New York, and international jazz scene. Fuller has toured worldwide and recorded with saxophonist Lou Donaldson and Paquito de Rivera. He has played with jazz masters from all styles and eras, including such diverse artists as Dizzy Gillespie, Mose Allison, Papa Joe Jones, Gary Mulligan, and Clark Terry. Fuller is one of the most sought-after jazz bassists in Connecticut and currently leads his own ensembles in many venues. In 2014, he was presented with the annual Jazz Haven Award for all he has done in presenting and preserving the culture and music of jazz. Fuller has a wide experience in both Afro-Cuban and Brazilian music. He has toured with Paquito de Rivera's New York Havana Quintet, the Hilton Ruiz Quintet, Daniel Ponce's Jazz Bata, and Orlando Puntilla Rios' Nueva Generacion. He composes and arranges for the top salsa group Irasu, whose CDs have featured soloists Arturo Sandoval and Tata Guinness. Fuller's Latin jazz big band and combo arrangements are frequently performed worldwide and are published by Sambelesa. 32 Music, the predominant distributor of written Latin jazz. He is co-leader of the popular group Sambelesa, which features singer-pianist Isabella Mendes and guitarist Joe Carter. His earlier Brazilian jazz group, Samba Brasil, was 7-time winner of the Best Latin category in the Hartford Advocates Reader Poll. Fuller's trio has released 4 CDs featuring their original music, always expanding his compositional repertoire and vocabulary. Fuller has received commissions from both the New Haven and the Hartford Symphony Orchestras, and has twice received project grants from the Connecticut Commission on the Arts. He has been the recipient of multiple commissions from 3-2 Music, Florida International University, Yale University, and UConn. Fuller graduated cum laude from Yale College and received his master's degree in composition from the Yale School of Music. You may know him as ensemble coach for the Yale School of Music Jazz Initiative, where he's been working since 2016. And he also teaches private lessons and conducts and arranges for the premier jazz ensemble of the neighborhood music school. So we're very, very glad to have all of you here. You present a wide range of experience and knowledge about this city that we all love. And so we can't wait to jump right in and get to know you a little better and get to know your work a little better. With that said, we wanted to take the moment to dive in a little bit to each of your respective circles, starting with you, Mr. Hameen. You were one of the founding members of Jazz Haven. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that organization? What was the hope for what you wanted to accomplish with Jazz Haven? Where has it taken you? We'd love to hear about that.
Okay, no, I'm not one of the founding members.
Oh, really?
No. That was Harold Danko and Doug Morrow.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what happened is back in 2008, yes. So in 2006, 2007, the Market New Haven actually was doing the New Haven Jazz Festival. So, so in those 2 years, there was no jazz really happening on the green. So, so what happened is I was in a conversation with a bunch of people, and I'm saying, we need to have a jazz festival. We need to bring it back. So I said, we don't have to worry about it because all the people that I know that are giants, my friends, said they'll come and they'll come and they'll work with me, so we don't have to worry about that. So there was about 13, 14 people. So I said, how many of you are with me? So all of them raised their hand. Yeah, I'm with you. I said, all right, now I don't talk, I do, right? So it started out the conversation with like a vent, but my intention is not venting. I tried to solve a problem. So, but the other people were venting. So it was Doug Morrow and Alita Staten who was serious. So the three of us, we got it back together. So Doug asked me, had I ever put on a festival of this magnitude before? I said, no, I haven't. I did a lot of things in New York, and I did a lot of different things, but I didn't lead a festival like this. So anyway, so I asked Doug, have you done it? He said, no. And we knew a leader hadn't done it. So Doug said, where do we go from here? I said, don't worry about it. I said, we'll go to my friend Paul Brown up in Hartford. Excuse me for hiccuping. At that time, Paul, who is deceased now, Paul had the longest running free outdoor concert in the United States. That was Monday nights up in Hartford. So I said, I'll get Paul. So I went to Paul. I said, Paul, we need some help. And Paul told us what to do. And so Doug said, what do you think? I said, yeah, we're going to do it. So I said, look, you have Jazz Haven. I said, 501c3, right? He said, yeah. I said, we'll do it through Jazz Haven, because I don't have a 501c3. So that's what we did. The three of us put the first one on. We did it. We had 2 days, the first one. After that, we got down to one day a week. Nick actually joined us a few years ago. Nick, how many years was you with us?
I was unofficially for a year and officially for 2.
Yeah. So Nick was with us for during that time, and we brought a lot of groups in. The first groups, like I said, they were my good friends, and we also showcased New Haven talent. So, and that's how Jazz Haven started getting into those festivals. Prior to that, Jazz Haven had done some smaller festivals, pop-up festivals, something in the order of the Jazzmobile. Are you I know some of you guys are young, you might not be familiar with Jazzmobile. Are you familiar with Jazzmobile?
I am.
I know Jeff Fuller is, but the other Zachary and Aiden and Nick.
I'm not.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I used to teach at Jazzmobile in New York. It was started by Billy Taylor. And Jazzmobile, it started out, it was like a truck with the bandstand. And they still have it that way. They play all the neighborhoods in the 5 boroughs, and then they expand up to Westchester, then expanded up to Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo, and Saratoga. So I used to make those trips with them. Then they did some things overseas too. So and then got into the public schools. A lot of people from Jazzmobile got into public schools in New York, doing jazz. But anyway, so Jazz Haven got into some of that, and I was talking to them earlier, trying to build on the model of Jazzmobile, but that's a difficult thing to do here in New Haven. But we were able to put on, we were successful. We put on, I think we did 2008. I think we did 8 or 9 of them, and then we didn't get enough money to continue. Need money, and but we're successful. And one of the things that we did, I mentioned, I said, now for every festival that we do, I'm not going to get involved with this unless every year that we have some artists come from the New Haven Jazz Festival to come to neighborhood music school and work with my summer jazz camp. So there's a residual effect. They don't come in here just do a performance, but come in and leave something with the young people, with the children, So, and which we've been doing every year. And even the last few years where we didn't have the festival, we are still had someone come into the summer jazz program. It used to be called Summer Jazz Camp, but we had to change the name from camp to program, because the legality of having a camp, you have to have a kitchen and other different things, and so otherwise it had to be called a program. So that was one of the things to educate the people about jazz, to create a forum for jazz musicians, to provide venues to support the jazz initiatives. So it's a work in progress. And the people that were doing it, I'm still on that board. and Nick was on the board. So no one gets paid. There's no paid position, really. So if anything, you come out your pocket. But it's still going, and it's a group of us. We're still trying to support, and make things happen, and we need more than that. Like Nick was with us, and the Nick, was doing something else, and now Nick is got what he's going to underground, and we need that. We need more. What you guys are doing, we need more. Everything can't be under the same umbrella. Even with our body, we have two eyes, right?
Yeah.
So if you close one eye, you say, "Oh wow, there's another thing going on here." You say, "All right," but together, you have a peripheral vision. So that peripheral vision concept is come from these collaborating arts organizations and individuals, and that's what happened. So that's what's happening to me as an individual, and that's what's going on with the Jazz Haven. Everything I do is not Jazz Haven, because there's things I do on my own that try to to help be beneficial to the community, to the society, to individuals. Because if any organization that you're in, and you as an individual, if you live in a life that is not beneficial to others, then you're not living a good life, in my opinion.
Can I just jump in with a couple of observations about the Jazz Haven
Go ahead.
Jazz Festival? Number one, Jesse briefly mentioned the role that Harold Danko played in the beginning. Harold Danko is a great piano player who lived in New Haven for 6-7 years and brought a lot of things to the foreground with the Jazz Haven, the Jazz Festival, and at the neighborhood music school. But the other thing was, one of the main focuses of Jazz Haven has always been to involve youth, the younger performers, and to go bring the music to youth too. So Craig O'Connell, the current, actually he's now no longer the director. He used to have the artists come into the schools he taught at. For all the kids, they just loved it. So, and Jesse's a big proponent of the same thing, of bringing the music to the people. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Right, and that's what I said. For each concert that we had, I said we have to have a youth group to open up.
Exactly.
That's what we did. I said otherwise I would not be involved. So and everyone agreed. So then I went on and got the information. Went to Paul Bryant. I mean, not Paul Bryant. Paul Bryant is an organist I used to work with on the West Coast. Paul Brown, and Paul Brown showed us what to do, and how to you have to have some people downtown that's in your corner to help you in City Hall, and we were to get that going on.
Okay, I want to talk about the New Haven Jazz Underground. I know you mentioned that just a second ago. Before we do, I was just curious, who'd you get for that first festival with Jazz Haven? Or any big names that you've gotten over the years?
Yeah, okay. We had the first one, let me see. The first one we had, oh boy, let me think back.
Well, I remember Freddie Hubbard.
No, not the first one.
But just in general, I remember when Freddie Hubbard.
Yeah. We had oh boy, I think we had
Max Roach was one, right?
No. We didn't have Max Roach. No, we didn't have Max Roach. We had Bernard Harper. We had boy, man, I'm getting a blank here. We had some good names. We had Bobby Washington didn't do the first one. Bobby Washington did the second one. I had to get listed his names, man. I'm gonna throwing so many people we had there. Wycliffe Gordon. Man,
I mean,
well, it's a matter of record. We could look it up.
Yeah, we can find that, and we'll post it on our Facebook when we do.
Yeah. Great acts.
Cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that and just kind of hearing the history of that. In regards to the New Haven Jazz Underground, Nick, we want to ask, just like kind of tell us the story about how that came about, how the New Haven Jazz Underground came about, and what was the idea, the thought process behind it, and like the intention of starting it, and then kind of how has it been, how the journey has been, and where is it taking you?
Yeah. Well, first off, let me say it's a real honor to be on a panel with Jesse and Jeff, two very well-established musicians in the city, and I'm very grateful to be a part of this panel with them. Very accomplished musicians, and I feel like I'm amongst giants here. So please keep the respect I have for these musicians in mind when I say that the underground was started out of kind of frustration. I got out of college right when the recession hit. There were barely any gigs. I was like the new kid on the block, and I had to start not only from the bottom, but in an environment where there wasn't a lot of work. So I started working for a venue that no longer exists anymore called the Outer Space. And I had a weekly show there. And I would bring in artists from New York City and kind of, to fill out the ranks. Because most of the time it was local acts. And then I would have someone like, Eddie Henderson or Jeremy Pelt play or something like that. And then that's how I got the attention from Jazz Haven. They one of their programming directors tapped me to help them with their festival. I think this was like 2014 or 15, something like that. And then I helped work on the festival, and then I became a board member. And Jazz Haven has an incredible amount of accomplishments, and I want I can't say that enough. But I felt very frustrated at times. I felt like we only focused on the festival. Like 1 week a year was like our focus. So I wanted, I felt as though I kind of had my boots on the ground, and I wanted the other 51 weeks to be as focused. So I left the Jazz Haven basically over creative differences. And formed the underground, basically going back to where I was before I joined Jazz Haven. And the purpose of the underground is to create a jazz community for what I call the gap. Again, I love that, and we are so lucky that Jazz Haven has brought incredible artists to the city, and that they go teach at Jesse's school in the summer. But what do you do when you're out of college? Or what do you do when you're in college? Where do you play? Where do you hone your craft? Where do you get to kind of get some notches under your belt? That's what I want to focus on. Basically, the gap between superstardom and being a student. And so I wanted to create a community where there were opportunities for musicians to play, hone their craft, and network with other musicians. So the underground is more of a street level organization. We formed in 2019. We have in June of that year, unfortunately because of COVID, we didn't this June, but we had what we called our Jazz Block Party, which is we had a week-long event where we had a quote unquote festival in the clubs in the city. So the whole, which featured local acts and groups from out of town. And basically it's a grassroots street level focused event. We're trying to get the musicians in the clubs in the town to work together as one, to support each other. And that's basically the focus of the underground. Up until COVID, we had 6 shows a week. So we were, we were doing pretty well up until shutdown. So that's kind of like, we're like, you've got Jazz Haven that's going to book the acts you hear, on Blue Note Records, and then and bring the artists for the camps and the schools and stuff. We're filling in that middle area there where musicians can interact together and get on the job training basically. So cool. Because the thing is like I listening to the bios of Jeff and Jesse, like I'm so jealous. That kind of doesn't exist anymore. There, you don't get tapped by a band leader, and there's no more jazz messengers. There's no more Horace Silver Quintet. So you have to be, there's way more musicians out there now. So you have to be creative about how you get experience playing music. So that's kind of like what I want the underground to be. Basically, a research laboratory for musicians, to showcase themselves and work together. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds really great, and it sounds like those two organizations, or it sounds like your organization has found its niche, and together those two organizations cover very different needs in the community. I think that's really cool. I wanted to talk about. Yeah, go ahead.
The what's happening? Yeah, right. Let's say culture and culture, right? So culture and coming to the morning, that's music. A culture is a world within itself, big macro world. Then there's micro worlds within culture. In jazz, this word jazz, you can ask some people, say, you like jazz? They say yes. I taught a class at Gordon College last month. It was four classes. We did the 8 classes with 2 a night, and it's for people that are getting their a master's degree in music education. And then it was the development of Black music in America. So we have some PhDs too that joined because they found out I was going to be on it, and they saw that what the curriculum was there, so they wanted to get some information. So some that didn't need it, they was there for the information, so they can better serve their students, which is great, So anyway, so I asked them. I said, "How many of you like jazz?" And we had about 24, 25 students in the class, right? So the majority of them, I said, raise your hand. I can see you. And majority of them did not raise their hand. So I said, how many of you like Nat King Cole? How many of you like Ella Fitzgerald? How many of you like Louis Armstrong? All of them raised their hand. So it's macro and micro, and the music is macro and micro, and the collaboration. I have a friend of mine who repairs instruments. I have 2 friends here actually repair instruments. So one of them was very happy what he was doing. Another one, he felt kind of bad about it because he wasn't doing a lot of gigs, but he repaired instruments. I said, man, that's an important integral part of the industry, right? So we need all these connected parts. So with the music, my heart bleeds for the younger musicians. When I was coming up, where I live, I still live in Dixwell area, right? So I can come out my house and walk in any direction, and with not in my car, I was walking within 2 blocks anyway, like 1.5 a block. I have 2 jazz clubs, and then that was the soundtrack, right? And another club down there. Then I walked another block right there, Winchester, and half a block up. That was Willie Ruff's place to play back. Walk up to the corner, make a left, go down a block and a half. That was the Monterey. Then 3 blocks past that was the Golden Gate and all that. I mean, and there was more. I'm saying that this music was happening in New Haven. We had matinees on Sunday, jam sessions on Saturday afternoon and Monday nights. So it's a void there, and that's how you grow. You as a musician, you have to be able to grow and develop. So that's something. So it's a good thing what Nick is doing, and I'm frustrated for the younger musicians. I feel bad for them because they don't have the opportunities that I did. I mean, like all of the people here on Blue Note, I'm going to jam session. Horace Silver could be in a jam session. Anybody could be in a jam session. I'm Blakey. Everybody, Freddie Hubb and all that. I mean, like me and Freddie and a guy like that, we could play basketball together and jam together. So the younger people, I'm frustrated for you. You have a right to be frustrated, So, because it's a sad situation. We don't have it happen. And then you got groups because of economics and everything. Here you got what I call incomplete groups. You got people playing as a bass and a guitar, a bass and a piano, the incomplete groups. So a lot of horn players not working, a lot of drummers not working, you know. So this is important, and as a community, we all need to work on trying to build an environment that's going to relieve that frustration. I'm frustrated for you. You know, I'm blessed. You know, I've been here, and I still got fire in me. God willing, I'll be 80 in March. You know, but I'm still hitting them drums hard. You understand? Still hitting, and I feel the frustration there, and so we have to figure some way to solve that problem. I was hoping before I was trying to do something in neighborhood middle school, but what happened is that the other departments start growing, everything start growing leaps and bounds. So now space is the premium. I was going to start some over neighborhood middle school. Jeff is over there with me in neighborhood middle school, you know, and so that's another thing too. Like over a neighborhood middle school, we're teaching and bringing up another group of young musicians, and we're giving them the same type of repertoire that they would get if they were in college. You know, so and this is going on year round, not just for the jazz camp. This is going on year round, and our premier ensemble, Jeff Fuller's leading that group, and that group goes out into the community to work, and some of the other groups. But we need to have more opportunity and paid opportunity, not just people to go out and jam. We need some paid opportunities.
Here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yes. So if anyone, I don't know who the people that are tuned into this, but anyone that's tuned in can we need some support for this type of situation. Perhaps
how can the people that are listening in support that mission?
Well, one thing people can do two things. On top of my head, one is make donations to organizations, and another is to go to the concerts. And right now, like if the underground is putting on some concerts, then people can go online and like they're doing in New York and other places. Smalls have concerts, and people pay. The musicians are socially distanced, and on the stage, nobody's in there but the sound man and the musicians, and people can make donations online and watch it on either FaceTime or Zoom or whatever medium that the performers are using. So people
I
can.
haven't heard anything like that in New Haven just yet. Have you, Nick? Have you done things?
Yeah. So the underground is unique in the sense that we are crowdsource driven. I feel like we are definitely veering away from getting large donations from individual citizens, and it's harder and harder to get a corporate backing without having to mold your mission to what is attractive to the whatever Target or Walmart, or wherever you're getting the money from or something. So the underground gets its money from crowdsourcing. And when I put on the block party, it was completely funded by donations through I say average people, basically. So what you can do is the underground has 4 levels on Patreon, and the lowest level is $2. Most people don't even notice that they're donating to us after a while. You get a lot of people to donate $2, it is enough to pay for a concert. And our jam session that occurred twice a month was paid for by crowdsourcing. There would be incentives, right? So if you were at least a level 2 and you were a musician, you had the opportunity to host the jam session. So every week the band changed, but if you were a financial backer, you were kind of like pushed to the front of the line. So, when I was booking, I would be doing bookings for the jam session, and cats would reach out to me and ask how can they get a gig. And I said, hey, look, it would be like February, and I'd say the earliest date I can give you is September, because the following I got to give, there's people who are financially invested, and obviously they have more of a priority, and that motivates people to get involved. And it sounds like a shakedown, but when you're donating $5 a month, you don't miss it. Let me tell you, you're paying more in ATM fees, and you're paying more for everything else you're buying.
I don't agree that it sounds like a shakedown though. It's just good.
I have Sicilian blood in me. What can I say? So, but even during the pandemic, so the Underground has a concert series called the Mind the Hang concert series. It started over the summer because, and I keep saying how grateful I am, we did not lose a single subscriber from March until July when we started up the series. So we actually had this bank of money, and so I was able to put on a show every week for the summer and get people back to work. And we were able to stream it, and we raised money for Black Lives Matter and the Connecticut Food Bank and all that stuff. Now that the money's kind of leveled off, we only have enough funding for one show a month, but that's still something.
It's better than nothing. Yeah.
So our next one is December 10th. And we do like what Smalls is doing. It's just the band and the sound guy, and that's it. And we go live on Facebook, we go live on Instagram and YouTube, and that's it. Like, that's all you can do right now. But it's something, and I feel like that fulfills the mission ultimately of the Underground. And again, like because of COVID, my new project is a podcast. And in every episode, I say this following thing, like, your contribution directly funds these efforts, and for as low as $2 a month. So it sounds silly, but you'd be surprised. You get 400 people donating $2. You got $200. That's not too shabby, or
That's like 800.
I went the other way. Whoops. but you know what I mean? You get you've got funding right there. And then here's the other thing that makes it so workable. God forbid the venue has a fire. Say where we were having a session, or one of our shows has a fire, closes down, or says to me one night, look, like, it's not working out, or something like that. You could just take that jam session or that show and find a new venue. When you are not financially tied to the place you're working, you don't have to work. So we would normally have the jam session from March to December, right? Once in a while, you'd get that March snowstorm, right? Or say, one year there was a tornado that went through. You have a night where like 3 people show up. You don't have the club owner breathing down your neck, because either their financial contribution is a fraction of the total amount, or they don't have as much to lose in their perspective. That's where you got to get creative, because that's how it is nowadays. And I came up with that concept because there was just so many jam sessions I saw come and go, and they had a lot of common themes. They had a lot of common problems that kept people from getting into it, and for them lasting. And by the time lockdown came, the jam session we at Three Sheets was 4 years old. I really don't. There's only so many jams that are that old. It's kind of a rare thing. So you got to get creative, and that's what we were doing. Right until lockdown. We were planning for the following, for the upcoming summer, and the same thing. It was how many people can we get to contribute, and I have found that to be the most rewarding, because, like Jesse said, I don't take any of the money. If anything, I spend even my own, but it's so much easier to build a, because, I'm getting jumbled with my words, but like, if you've got someone who's financially contributing even a couple of bucks a month, they're still involved in what you're doing. They're getting all your newsletters, they're getting all your events. There's someone who's paying attention. So, a lot of times people would say, well, how do where's your sign up sheet? Where's your email list, right? Go to Patreon, sign up for $2 and you'll never miss a thing. And they're like, oh yeah, $2, no big deal. You're paying more. Everybody is paying more for Spotify, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Audible, all that stuff anyway. They're not going to notice it. So that's how you got to get crafty, and that's the wave of the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we'll be posting that information to all of your organizations so people can look into them and get involved.
Yeah, definitely. It was really great to hear about all y'all's efforts to really keep the community involved. And speaking of that, and Jesse also mentioned briefly talking about the neighborhood music school. This question is specifically for Jeff. You spent many years working with the neighborhood music school. What's been the most rewarding part of working there, and what kind of always brings you back?
I've been at the neighborhood music school 20 years now. Jesse's probably been there a few years longer, but we've both seen the school grow in its importance in the community. We have, of course, neighborhood music school just celebrated its 100th anniversary. It's actually a few years ago, but they were 100 years old. Started out in Worcester Square as a school of music and art, I believe, for immigrants, mostly Italian immigrants, and moved over to Audubon Street, I think in the 80s, with a brand new building renovated in the 90s. And it's a magnificent space, but like Jesse said, we're running out of space. There's not enough room to do everything that we could potentially do. What I particularly love about the neighborhood music school is the extremely high quality of the students and the faculty. The faculty, I taught in many institutions, and at neighborhood music school, the faculty is as dedicated and passionate and skilled and qualified as any faculty at a university or a high school could be. All of the teachers are professionals. They all do their job. So that, in other words, if you're a piano teacher there, you play piano out in the community. Same with singers, same with the jazz department. We're all professional jazz players, So it's a marvelous way to attract really good students. I suppose that's what I need to say. What I like, why I keep coming back there is, there's a certain loyalty that you feel to an institution that's been good to you, and especially that has been good to the students. The students who've gone through the course of my 20 years teaching there have been lifelong learners, is a good expression to use for them. They become interested in music and they stay interested in music. Many of them go on to play professionally. I mean, to name the top one that I can think of, Christian Sands, but how about Wayne Escoffery? How about, there's others. Many others that have gone on to be professional jazz players, just let alone jazz. Zway is who I was thinking. Zway Bell Lepere, the bass player. And
Ryan Sands.
Ryan Sands, of course, Christian's brother, who's got his trio performing somewhere very soon. So anyway, there's a familyness to it. There's a family nature to it. There's a loving and a caring about it. And God bless Neighborhood Music School. And that's one of those organizations that if you want to contribute money to that, especially on these Giving Tuesdays and things that come about, they're most deserving of it. I just want to say, well, I've got the floor here for a minute, that Nick's ideas are spectacular. They're really good ideas.
Thank you.
Yet for people of my age and my vintage, I don't think that way. I'm of the I got a gig at a club or a restaurant or some concert series and like that. I simply do it for the owners, for the entrepreneurs, for the promoters. Interestingly, up until COVID, up until March 15th, I mean, a date on my calendar, I still had 3-4 gigs every week. And that's down, way down from years ago when there were 5 to 7 gigs every week, all over the place. New York City, Westchester, Lower Fairfield County, Hartford, New Haven, everywhere. Now I had a month, well, let's not even talk about it. I had maybe 6 gigs since March 15th, period. 6 gigs. And if it weren't for teaching at the neighborhood music school, teaching at Yale and doing private teaching, my income would be crap. And my income is pretty much crap anyway, but so God bless you, man, Nick.
Thank you.
I would almost say if there's any way you could involve me, I'd be happy to be involved, but leave that up to you.
No, we should talk after, because I have wanted to bridge the gap between, I feel like I'm the old man on the scene a lot of the times. With love, Jeff, but I've wanted to get more established players involved. I feel like right around the time I was, and this is nobody's fault, but I feel like right around the time I was getting taken seriously is when COVID hit. The Underground's going to be 2 in February. So it was like, after all this hard work, it was, we were caught at the knees, because I feel like I had enough ground to stand on to approach older musicians, more established musicians, and say, look, like this, I've got this, army of kids behind me. We could broad stroke across generations of musicians and connect all these different scenes. Jeff makes a really good point. Again, there's 2, I'm a New Haven school teacher. When I'm not gigging, I teach kindergarten to 8th grade school children. And part of that is my mentor, the trumpet player, Eddie Henderson. He was a psychiatrist during the day, and he was a jazz musician at night. He played with Hancock. He played with the Jazz Messengers. He was actually, if I remember correctly, he was one of Thelonious Monk's doctors at one point. Eddie taught me that, like, the love of the craft has, like the motivation to do the craft has to be love. It has to be passion for the music. Otherwise, you're heading for a mental episode. And I took that to heart. So as much as I love teaching, and I could spend a whole panel talking about my educational career, I'm grateful that it provides me stability to do my artistic pursuits. It allows me to take gigs that, maybe the bread's not that great, but I want to play, or if I want the rhythm section I can sacrifice my end to pay the guys what they deserve. And that's another way that you can bypass. Because again, Jeff's talking about having 3 gigs a week, and that's low. Up until COVID, I was averaging 3 gigs. 3 gigs a week was good for me because the perspective's different. You see, there's not as much work. So for me, 3 gigs is, I'm slammed this week, man. I got 3 gigs. Because all I've ever heard are stories of like, oh, I play 5 nights a week. Man, that never existed for me. Never. And that's the thing. Like, I embrace this title of being a millennial because, man, I didn't do anything wrong. I graduated school and there was no work. There's nothing I could do about that. So you have to roll with and be like a chameleon to the environment. So you have to create opportunities. I always joke that part of my motivation to create the Underground is selfishness, because if there are places to play, I can play at them, whether it's a jam session or a brunch gig or something. We all benefit if you create the environment, and that's the point, because you could be easily replaced by a DJ these days, you know, and a lot of times you're not even considered before they make that kind of choice. So you have to think of ways to get creative with your work and getting it out there.
Well, Jesse and I went through, hell dealing with club owners, promoters,
Right.
people who, like try to nickel and dime you to death.
Right.
To get to the point where, as of pre-COVID times, most gigs paid $100, period. 125
Yeah.
was becoming more and more the standard rate. Now that's considerably up from in the 1970s and 80s when gigs paid 75. It's not that much better. It's only matching inflation a little bit.
Well,
So you get it when you come along and you get offered a gig to play a $500 wedding, even, or a $750 concert, man. Those are rare in the pre-COVID days.
they were. I mean, that's the thing. It seemed like up until COVID, there were more gigs. They all kind of paid the same, and that's the thing. And it's kind of like, well, do you want to work or do you not? And that's why I stress, one of my teachers told me there's like 5 guys in the world that play jazz only. Everybody else does other things, or most musicians do things. And it's not a knock on anybody. I always say Kenny Dorham was a mailman. There as long as you conduct yourself with dignity, whatever you do is dignified. So it is okay to pursue other things and burn that candle at the other end, working on your craft. And I have no problem telling people I'm a school teacher and I'm a jazz musician. That's what I do, because that's how things are these days. And I'm glad Jeff is kind of like backing me up on this financially. I remember, again, not to harp on the same issues, but maybe my first couple of gigs professionally paid like $100 a pop, where I'm playing like in a jazz group in a bar. That went away real fast, real fast. And it's hard to find that kind of work where it's sustainable. You can find that $100 gig, but does the gig end after that one night?
Well,
So,
around New Haven, the restaurants, as you know, Elm City Market, Home in Brantford. I'm sure there's many others I can't think of off the top of my head. Once you got a steady gig, you held on to it.
yeah.
So those particular 2 venues that I mentioned, both of whom I really respect the owners of, their gigs paid $100, period. But you had it every month or every 2 weeks. And I played, back in the day, I played at the Cuckoo's Nest in Old Saybrook on Thursday nights with a pianist. Now, these were not big jazz gigs with a drummer and saxophone player and trumpet player, Nick, sorry. But they were just a duo. I played every Thursday night for 24 years at the Cuckoo's Nest in Old Saybrook. And talk about honing your craft and even practicing, as much as, wow, that was a great, but those gigs don't exist anymore.
One thing you mentioned about Kenny Dorham. So like when I was younger, like back in the 60s, when I first moved to New York, I went on the road in 1963, and I went up Boston area. And then I working in New York, when I moved to New York and working around New York, I stopped traveling, but when I go to jam sessions, Kenny Dorham was hosting the jam session at Mittens. So us young guys, we go to jam sessions, with a session hosted by him, and Blue Mitchell, all the cats be there. We all had opportunity to work with the Giants, and to learn from them. And then on the $100 thing, I have a issue with that because, like, I was getting $100 in the 60s and I remember 1970 and 71, 72, like one of my friends and my mother-in-law, I think in 1972, they bought a brand new Toyota Corolla for $3,200. You can look this up on the internet, right? So you know what $100 meant back then. Yeah. So by 1970, I'm telling guys, I said my minimum, man, for one night was like 120. Most time I would get like 175, sometimes more than that. But I put a price on myself, and then I was fortunate when I left here. I went on the road October 1963. I was never off, never ever. I never. Matter of fact, even since I was 5 years old, I never had a relationship with unemployment. And so sometimes you got to put a price on yourself. Like this $100 stuff. Man, I said, why you guys working for $100? But I was getting that money in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, that's all the restaurants will pay over around here, man. And those are the only gigs. Those are the only gigs, Jesse.
No. I understand. I'm part of the history. You understand? So just like in New York, we had. I don't want to call names, but there's certain group of guys in New York. They meant well. But I used to talk to them. I said, and these big name cats now. When they were younger, they were going to Smalls. That's when Smalls was up on Broadway. And what's the other place up there on Broadway? Augie's. I mean, the Augie's changed name after they became Smalls.
Smokes now, right?
Yeah. So anyway, so they go on those places and just jam, just so they get a chance to play, and play for tips. And then people doing it all over the Midtown in the Village. So then I caught on. The club owner said, "Wait a minute, we don't have to pay musicians. Let them play for tips." And then I tell you guys, you guys are spoiling the market. So we want a chance to play. We don't gig like you do, man. So they spoiled the market, and then it got to the point in New York where, and they still do it. Some places the musicians have to guarantee a certain amount of audience, or not, you have to pay the club owner. So musicians are flipped on that. Like to my gigs. When I first came back to New Haven, I came back in 1995 because my parents were ill, right? That's why I came back. I didn't plan on staying. I planned on going back to New York when they passed away, but I got so involved with things I'm doing over here as I stayed. I'm glad I did stay. I said because there's a lot of Jesse Hameens in New York, but not a lot of Jesse Hameens over here. So over there I was doing things. I was helping them musicians. I was teaching, Jazzmobile, and I had my own studio teaching private. When I wasn't on the road, I was doing a lot of work. But I was doing like 19 gigs a week. Like, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Ross Townsend and Bob Cunningham, bass player Bob Cunningham. Bob, he's on a lot of records with Yusef Lateef, and he's worked with Dizzy Gillespie. So we used to do a lot of, three of us used to do a lot of gigs together. And in the daytime, we did them school gigs, and the weekends we do libraries. So, and a lot of us guys that did that for years, I don't know anybody that played all of the libraries and the public schools in New York. There's too many. I don't know anybody that played all of them. So and some of them I only played once, and each week I'm doing a lot of them. So I was doing like one week. I said, well, I got 19 gigs this week, man. I said, man, that's too many gigs, man. They said, that's all you got? I said, how many you got? They had 27, I said, damn, that's too many gigs, man, So
It's a high stress lifestyle. Believe me, man.
Yeah. But when you get into it, like it's very easy. So what you call 2 gigs, if you're going to public school and you do two assemblies, that's 2 gigs, right? And then you do a gig that night. So you're in that school, the assembly is 40 minutes. So you do 2 40-minute assemblies. So that's just 2 gigs. Then you do a gig that night, Blue Notice, wherever you are, then that's 3 gigs in that same day. So it's very easy to do that amount of gigs, But over here, it's a different situation. And even now in New York, it's tough for the young musicians. I mean, it's really, really tough. And one thing what you're doing, Nick, I always tell all of my students, I said, do not allow anyone to intimidate you into not being a professional musician. I said, simultaneously, do not let anyone intimidate you into being a professional musician. That's one thing you're doing, a performing artist. I said, there's worlds in it, like Nick said, that he's no offense now, they're gonna take offense what I'm saying, right? But you said you're a public school teacher and a jazz musician. So I tell my students, I don't talk like that. So no, you're a musician. So what do? So I teach and I perform. And now you're a grassroots organizer. You're an activist. You know, so what do? I'm a musician. What do you do in music? I'm an activist. I'm a CEO of whatever. What are you musician of corporation that you started, right? To help benefit a musician and build a jazz community, better the life of musicians, to help younger musicians to grow and develop, and then also you do performances as a jazz musician and jazz, and then also you're a school teacher. So all that's in the world of music. You understand? So you're not divided. It's one. It's one. It's not one. It's not, no division in you. It's one. And so I tell all my students, you know, and not just my students, but, you know, like a lot of the young musicians, you know, somebody in 20, 30, 40 years old, they're my children. My oldest son is going to be 57 in March. He's 56, my oldest son, right? My youngest son just turned 44 this week, right? Anyway, like I tell them, I said, if you can find something else that you can do that's in the world of music. Someone said, well, my thing is not an instrument. So well, what do you do? You know, well, I'm an organizer. What do you do? I'm an accountant. Yeah, so you can make that accounting skill work for your music. If you have skills with graphics, you can make that work for you in music. So there's worlds in music. If you want to be in the world of music, look at the world of music. You know, Jeff knows. I give the students sometimes a list of all the different occupations in the world of music, and people say, "Wow, so different skills." I didn't realize that. Yes, you can do that and still be a musician. Someone has to be director of programs. Someone has to open up venues. Someone has to book the acts, right? I mean, all these different in the chain of distribution from conception on the music till it gets to the ultimate consumer and user. You know, music like any other field has to be marketed, and that's what marketing is all phases of business activity from conception until it gets in the hands of ultimate consumer and user. You know, so all of that is in the world of music. So not that we're doing this and no. I'm a musician, and what do you do? That's what I do. And for me, my motivation is I'm a human excellence advocate. You know, that's what I am, and I use my music as the vehicle for me to do that. And we have to work, and you know, we have to, you know, have to put ourselves in a position to do what we can, and the younger musicians, you know, like Jeff and myself, I know we have to figure some way. Can't do it consistently, you know, but got to be some. The younger musicians are benefiting from me and Jeff. You know,
I wanna ask about that, about the younger musicians a little bit, because many of the people that are listening right now are Yale students, and so I wanted to ask, historically, where has Yale fit into the jazz community? Where does it fit in now? And in your opinions, where should it fit in?
Well, let me
say this. That can help out and that are very eager to learn and to get involved.
Well, when I came back to New Haven in 1995, Yale had an endowment. I saw that the Yale newspaper had an endowment of $7 billion. I said, wow, that's a lot of money. And then a couple of years ago, it was like 27 billion. I don't know what it is now, right? So when we had the jazz festivals all this time with Jazz Haven, Yale give us like $1,500, $2,000. You know, what's that, man? You know, so Yale need to come out their pocket with some money. New Haven, so when I was growing up, New Haven had industry, right? Yale's the industry now. There's no more factories like there used to be. Factories and all the industry. We don't have the big corporation. We never did have the big corporation like Harvard had. The insurance, the insurance companies. Harvard had all that. So all the small arts organizations here, is vying for the same piece of money from the same part, right? So our key is for survival. We have to find a collaboration methods, you know, and we have to look at what is the need, and people have to be more open, you know, and have to do more collaborating. And if we don't help the younger people, then we're not gonna have anybody to listen to or to perform with. Just like neighborhood music school, like one of the things that Jeff was saying, I love it because it's family. We have students that stay with us when they become adults. Daryl Litzy, he was a little boy. He used to play piano and drums, and he didn't decide which one he was do. So each year he'd come to jazz camp and alternate 1 year piano, one year of drums. So then he decided to be a pianist. So he was one of Jeff and our students. Now what's happening? He's been working with Jeff Fuller as a peer now, right? Studying.
He's a pianist in my trio, and he also teaches a fairly heavy load at Sacred Heart University. He's quite established as an academician. If I could just jump in with a few words about Yale and jazz.
Go ahead.
I came to Yale in the 60s as an undergraduate. And I would say that, you know, pretty much like today, there was a core group of people, young students, and even faculty who were really involved with jazz. They loved jazz. They loved everything about it. They loved the improvisational nature of it, the musical emotion that it contained. And if the question is, has it changed within the Yale community significantly from what I've observed now coming back to teach some of the Yale undergraduates, I'd say it's about the same. There's a certain percentage, maybe a slightly higher percentage now, of students like yourselves who are really interested in jazz, and go about it in a serious way, both academically and musically, technically, let's say. So that's a really good thing. What is also still the same about jazz and Yale from when I was a student, and I was both an undergraduate and a graduate student at the School of Music, is that there is no really credit-based program of jazz education. And you know, walking on thin ice, but I think that's a travesty. You can go to Yale and study some obscure Asian languages. Nothing wrong with that at all. It should be taught. You could study batik or something in the art school, but you can't study jazz for credit. And jazz is one of America's greatest art forms. Why is that? So I don't mean to stir up the pot any more than it has been stirred by the Undergraduate Jazz Collective, but why isn't jazz being taught both ensemble-wise and let's say theory and composition for credit, period?
Private lessons.
Yeah,
Why aren't there private lessons?
exactly. Yep, and that is, as you hopefully know, that is the fight that we've been fighting. And it is sort of
You can't take jazz lessons at Yale? Like you can't?
not for credit.
Jeff? Oh, for credit, but
Not for credit, and there isn't really much available. We're actually working on trying to set up a jazz lessons program right now.
Right, how's that coming?
It's coming.
Yeah.
There'll be more information about that as we get some funding figured out.
Mhm.
But yeah, that is an issue that we've been struggling on. And as long as this city has a lot of history of jazz, but as long as there's not funding put towards that, we'll get fewer students that are interested in jazz. So it's sort of self-perpetuating.
Yeah. And that same small core of people who are passionate about jazz will always be there. But you could have a real thriving scene.
Exactly. Wanted to move on a little bit and sort of ask one last question, and then we'll take a look at some audience questions. I wanted to ask all of you who've had years experience working and performing here in New Haven, What do you love about this city? What has kept you here? Why do you stay in this city? What do you love about it?
Well, I can speak for me. I was born and raised in New Haven. Okay. And New Haven was really the jazz mecca of Connecticut. Hartford had some good things happening. Bridgeport was lagging behind, but New Haven was the place. I mean, that's why I feel so sorry for the younger musicians. I mean, there was so much jazz in New Haven. I mean, quality jazz, and some great jazz musicians came out of New Haven. Grew up here in New Haven. I learned a lot. You know, every band that came in, because remember, like back in the 50s and 60s, even at the HBCUs, you know, the historical Black colleges and universities, they didn't teach jazz, right? So Berkeley was young, and here I am, like 21, 22 years old. I'm on the road and go to Berkeley, and they asked us to come in and talk, give lectures to the students, so the students can see some live performance. I said, man, this is you know, this it's better than nothing. That was good, but I said, man, you know, there's no place in Connecticut was like that. You know, there was very few places that we can learn. So most of us, the guys, and me and Jeff learned some composition in jazz, composition at Yale. He didn't learn jazz at Yale.
That's
So
true.
all of the guys, all the guys that I came on with, learn from individual, from each other. You study with a private teacher. You know, some people were fortunate enough to have a good public school teacher like Nick, and who taught us some jazz. But most people didn't learn that way. You know, so it's I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot going on. So we learn from each other. You know, which is you know, it's sad. So New Haven taught me so much. It was my school. All the bands that came through here, you know, they taught me a lot. So when I left New Haven, quite honestly, students always have growth and development to do. But when I left New Haven, I was grooving, man. And New Haven had a pocket, man. We'd come from the heart, man. We, you know, with no pity pat. We played, man. We played from the heart, man. New Haven had a sound, man. You know, like you looked at this, the sound like our Blakey the Jazz Message, Horace Silver sound. You know, that's kind of like New Haven sound, man. We played from the heart, man. You know, so it wasn't no cocktail music thing. It was grooving, and people danced to the music. So that helped you keep your groove on. People dance to all the jazz club. People dance to them. So one time I'm doing a gig with Houston Person, Dickie Myers, and Vernon Biddles, right? And them guys just be on my case, man. So one time I said, look, I said, I'll tell you what, you know, because the bebop teaching is not that, the bebop school, they don't babysit you, they tell you like it is, you know. So you're on the jam session, and if you're a drummer, and you can't keep the tempo, another drummer will come behind you and snatch a stick out of you and get up, man, you know. And so I'll be back next week. You see, same way take any tune, not just Cherokee, any tune. Say, okay, well, through the keys, right? And the tip was up here. So the horn players, they had an out. The horn players would take their reed out, so put the reed up to the mic. Bass players and drummers couldn't, right, Jeff?
Oh, that's right, man. I came in on the tail end of that scene.
I'm gonna wind out of here though. So I haven't got where we are. So what happened? When I went to New York, I was taking New York by storm because New Haven got me together. So now I'm going around the world doing concerts and around the country, and they're saying on drums from New York City. I jump up. You know, I wouldn't have a speaking mic come a drummer. But I grab one of them overhead mics, a mic on my cymbal. If I'm in front of 100,000 people, 50,000 people, whatever, 75,000 people, 20,000 people, I grab the mic. No, New York didn't do this. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. That's how I feel about New Haven. New Haven made me. And that's the reason I never got on drugs, because the people for New Haven supported me. And I knew, I said, man, if I got on drugs, not only my mother and father are gonna be disappointed. I said, but the New Haven community is gonna be disappointed in me. I said, I can't let people down. So because of that, man, the New Haven, man, I'm New Haven. New Haven made me. And that's why I'm happy to be able to get back to New Haven now. That's one of the reasons why I feel happy about staying here. I'm giving back in New Haven.
Yeah, and just to clarify, like, first of all, that's really great to hear. It's really cool to hear your story with New Haven. And just to clarify, with jazz lessons, and right before Jeff and Nick can go, there are actually no jazz lessons at Yale. So that's kind of a really big part of why we're kind of driving really hard to get this going with the collective.
Yeah. Thanks. I was fortunate enough to teach a few lessons courtesy of Professor Tom Duffy at the end of last school year. So I was subsidized for like 4 lessons for a couple of the kids, mainly the kids from my ensemble who needed the lessons to improve their ensemble play. Anyway, so just what Jesse said about New Haven is right on. Like I said, I first came to New Haven in the mid 60s, and came here to go to school because the school was great. I fell in love with the city of New Haven at that point. I stayed here for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, did my graduate work here. And then I moved to New York City. I was playing bass, and then eventually I moved to New York City for 10 years. And played with a lot of these same people that Jesse's talking about. Art Blakey would come sit in on gigs that I was playing, just to come sit in. You know, everybody, all the great piano players. Ross Townsend, you mentioned him before, I played a bunch of gigs with him. Anyway, at the end of my New York stay, 10 years, I would look out the window and say, geez, I'd love to see a tree. I'd love to wake up and see a tree. So I started looking for a place to live outside of New York City, the environment. Sure enough, I ended up in New Haven, and I've been here ever since. So I moved back to New Haven mid-'80s, and have lived here ever since. And I find New Haven, like you said in the very beginning, Dean, you said the city we all love, and that rang a bell with me. This is a great city. It's got cultural venues. It's got a beautiful downtown area. It's got wonderful people of all kinds of different people. The Hispanic community, the Latinx, or whatever you want to say, the Latin community in New Haven has yet to be really brought into the mainstream, and that would be a wonderful thing to have happen. So I've been very comfortable living in New Haven. I love New Haven. I love Yale. You know, I love the gigs, even though they're not high visibility gigs like I had when I was in New York City. It turned out when I was living in New York City, I was on the road half the time, touring with various bands. So I said to myself one day, well, I don't have to live in New York if I'm going to be on the road all this time. I might as well come home to a nice environment. And that's why I moved back to New Haven. I've been here ever since, got involved with ECA, the school, with Neighborhood Music School, and at Yale University. You know, I just wish there were some more real jazz gigs. There are a couple of good jazz venues in the state of Connecticut when they're open. One is Firehouse 12 downtown New Haven, and out in Lyme, what's it called? Side Door Cafe. Yeah, those are the, and then, but in the past, there have been some great jazz clubs in Hartford. Lloyd's in Hartford was wonderful. Cafe 880, and there's many great jazz clubs. So, viva New Haven! Let's make it thrive musically too.
Right.
And again, a different perspective. So my roots are in Connecticut. Mostly, my family is from Waterbury, but my uncle imported scallops from right into New Haven Harbor. So I spent a lot of time in New Haven. And when I got out of school, it's kind of the same thing, like what Jeff was saying, but you don't have to live in New York anymore, man. Like with the era we live in, you don't. So to me, I fell in love with New Haven, and then I could still go play in New York. You know, it's not that far. If I wanted to go to a jam session, I could. If I had, I had a residency in the East Village for 2 years while I was living here. There's a lot of musicians these days who don't live in the city, who work in the city or do serious work. Someone who I always bring up with this conversation is the drummer of the Bad Plus, Dave King. He lives in Minneapolis, and kind of for the same reason Jeff said he wanted to leave New York. There's something to be said about a smaller city where you still have that metropolitan life, but you got a little bit more nature around you. I appreciate that part. I appreciate the culture of New Haven. New Haven is a village. I can't tell you how many times I would set up a show with my band in another band that was not in the jazz genre. We have playing at one of the clubs. We have amazing clubs in this town. It's one of a kind, and you thrive. The music thrives if you expand your reach. So I always think about a time I was in Pittsburgh, right? And on a random night, we heard that this one bar had jazz. Who was playing? Roger Humphreys, right?
Yeah.
He was in Horace Silver's band for many years. And, I was like, I need to go to this. And he has spent most of his life, flourishing the jazz sound and life and culture in Pittsburgh, and I wanted to do that for New Haven. So it's kind of like I'm a local already, and I can go to New York, and that's the thing. And I think a lot of musicians are realizing with COVID, you don't need to live in New York to get your music out there. So I also enjoy like seeing trees, and grass and stuff like that. And I love New York City, but this will always be home. I feel like once you fall in love with New Haven, like it's a bug. You can't get rid of it,
Can I add something to that? So I was in New York so long that a lot of people still call me, so you still in New York. You've been back here 25 years, but you're a New Yorker. so they joke with me, right? But anyway, but New York, it's so exciting, man. So much. I like for me. I mean, oh man, it was just so good to me. New York and New Haven both were good to me, and I learned a lot, in New York, and I was able to be a musician to help have my life be beneficial to New York while I was there. Wasn't just doing gigs, but I was doing things that assisted in the community. So even with the Jazz Foundation, I was with them. I was with the group that me, Jamil Nasser, bass player, Jimmy Owens. We were with part of the group that dispersed funds to musicians that had any type of difficulty, health or financial, right? So anyway, when I came back to New Haven, I was shaking like a leaf, man. My mother just asked me, said, how to feel being back. I said, I'm scared to death. Like I said, I'm a New Yorker, you know what I'm saying? In New York, I don't care where I go to Blue Note, Vanguard, any of the places, and they say the place is closed, not closed, but full, no more standing room only. We can't get anybody in there, And so they would see me and say, Jesse Hameen. Say, how many people with you? I said, just 3 of us. Come on in. People say, I thought you said it was 4. I said, yeah, but that's Jesse Hameen. So like that's all of the venues that they knew me like that. Right? I go now. It's how much? 25 years since 1995. So different people on the door now. Different managements. They all don't know me like that, right? Some places they still do, But anyway, so when I got so hooked in New York, and New York, you're living faster. But fortunately, I lived in a good area in the Bronx, with no crime. Trees are high rise, but there was trees and park right there where I was. But anyway, I came back to New Haven. I said, wait a minute. I said, man, this is different. I can like Jeff saying, now you see trees all over. I can hear the birds in the morning. You don't hear all those sirens and stuff, because you get used to that stuff, man. Like the rush hour, people that didn't live in New York, they robbed me in rush hour. They say, man, how you put up with this? Put up with what? So you get sensory adaptation, man, physical and spiritual adaptation. Like, so what happened? I said, wait a minute. So like when you go into to a movie in the summertime, a nice hot sunny day, and you go into the movies, you can't see first. Your pupils dilate, right? Then once you get in there, now you can see. So because you're stepping over people and everything when you first get in there. So now when you leave out the movie, you come back into the sunlight. Now the sunlight blinds you, right? So you got to wait for your pupils to dilate. So what was happening? I said, now all them years I'm living in New York, I'm living I'm making money, have good people there, but it's like being in the movie. So now I came back over to Connecticut in the natural sunlight. At first it was blinding my eyes. So after my pupils dilated, I said, man, this is nature. This is natural, man. All the different birds come. I get bluebirds and robin redbreast. I mean, all these. I'm seeing all the birds, and oh man, it's beautiful. So it's not a concrete jungle. So yeah, this is it's more natural. And some good people here in New Haven. Some good people. Is it perfect? No. Has it ever been perfect? No. Is any place perfect? No. Is any person perfect? No. And if we're honest, like there's a talk I give sometime, like I gave it a couple of graduations, and there's a talk I give, I'm real short. Like I said, there's someone here in the audience, and I'm going to say who the person is when I finish, because the person's not going to mind it. But this is the person that has made a lot of promises to me and didn't keep them. I had a lot of faith in this individual. As a result of having faith and listening to this individual, I missed out on a lot of opportunities. But the person had good intentions. I have love my heart for the individual, and I still work with that individual. And if I can work with that individual, then I can work with you. And we have to be with each other, work with each other. And anyway, after my long spiel and everything, I said that the individual that I had faith on and made him bad, made some promises didn't keep. So it's me. So if I can work with me, then I can work with other people. And we human beings, we're social creatures. You can't come to birth by yourself, and you can't die by yourself. Somebody got to bring you in this world. Somebody got to dress you to get you out of here to bury you and everything. So and while you're living, so we're a community, and we got to see the we and the us. And I got to, Nick, you and I got to have the talk. Because we got to look again. You need some more support. Some got to be revisited. And so all right, you give me a call, man.
Yeah, that really sounds good, and it's really great to be able to hear y'all's viewpoints on New Haven, because it's a city we all love, and it's great that y'all are still here doing a lot of great stuff. And so just to kind of close it out, we have we only have time for one audience question, and it's just really brief responses because we're running low on time right now. But the question is from Ethan Dodd, and it's basically, how can Yale students get involved in the New Haven jazz scene? Venues, particular jams, groups, or collectives to join?
So real quick, I my perspective is on the outside looking in. So I mean, no offense when I say, be aware of the city you're in. Go out, walk around. New Haven's not big. Walk around, you'll find music. Look up, just search Facebook, search Google and everything. You will find the venues, you will find the collectives and the organizations if you look for them. So get out there and look.
Yeah.
And then I would add to that, what is the motive, the intention? Is it someone that's just looking to enjoy listening to music? Is it someone that wants to participate and as a musician to grow and develop? What is the intention? It matters just by intention. So if you're in the population that want to grow and develop and find a venue where you can participate in, so connect with Nick. Connect with Nick. Nick is and there's others, and find out what other people are doing gigs, and contact Jazz Haven, because I'm on the board, and I'm going to try to get us to do a little more with initiative like what you're doing, Nick. You was there before, but I think try to work with that more, and for the and check out what Jeff is doing,
Well, here's what I would say. Sorry, Jesse.
Yeah, and I'll just say, and also we work out something like Yale also Yale need to come up out their pocket with some money. Yale got money, man. You guys are there as students. Yale getting Yale. I don't care if you're on scholarship or whatever your parents paying for. Yale's getting the money, right? So and Yale needs to help you guys and help the city.
Yeah, we'll do our best advocating for that with the collective. And as I said, we'll post the information about the New Haven Jazz Underground, the neighborhood music school, and Jazz Haven. Jeff, any final words on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to the questioner that I think, like Nick DiMaria has done, it's often in your best interest to try to make a gig happen. A place like Best Video in Hamden, of course, no place during COVID is having live music, but you could certainly try to do something online. But the Best Video in Hamden is a place that always comes to mind for their open policy of, inviting young musicians to perform. Even the Elm City Market, when it's back in business, which might not be until summer, had some jazz kind of sessions on Saturday and Sunday. Those are the two places. And Nick DiMaria is the person who really probably is the best resource for that kind of thing right now.
And also, they can join some of our ensembles at Neighborhood Middle School.
Cool.
When they're meeting.
Yep. And this is all looking forward to that time when we can join together and play music. Thank you so much, all of you. It's been a pleasure to hear your stories and viewpoints. And I'm looking forward to, again, that time when we can continue collaborating, when we can all be together, enjoying live music. That said, we've reached the end of our time. So we will be signing off.
All right.
Yeah.